He throws that, I'm here. I have him caught here, I have a stop. And that's where he's gonna end. I have to right? Now I have a disarm with control and offense. The reality is if you only train with your knife, you end up missing the biggest reality of what you're gonna have to deal with. And that's when you don't. He comes in, right? Here, right? Do I wanna stay on the line of attack? Probably not. In the comments, oh, I'm not gonna carry a baton, I'm not gonna carry a long blade. People carry knives. You see it all over the world. It's a super available tool. It's there all the time. Just because you maybe you have one and you can't deploy it, maybe you don't have one at all. But your training needs to be a direct line from what you're doing in the gym to what you might experience in real life, okay? And if you're missing that, you're doing yourself a massive disservice. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna start with this understanding of knife to knife, because this is where FMA typically starts. There's a real lack of knife to empty hand consideration, but a good way to segue knife to empty hand is understanding the way that you hold your knife. Now, typically when we're talking about knife drills, it's gonna be him attacking, we're both here, okay? Strikes here, okay, yeah. Okay, here, the low, right. So we're talking about this. Now, the reality is you need to understand that beyond not being there in a real situation, why do you need to hold your knife this way? This is purely offensive. There's very little control that's afforded by it. Now, if you look at the traditional Bowie knife, a lot of traditional Bowie knives have an edge on the back and they're blunt on the front. The reason for that is because they want to cut on the back end. Bowie knives were created primarily for trench warfare back in the days of Bowie and the Alamo. Now, if we switch our weapon to be edge in, when he attacks me, if I come here and here, I have a cutting edge that's on the back side. And it provides me with a large amount of control. He gives me a backhand on the high end, okay? Again, this is blunt to blunt. Here, here, here. It's all there, okay? If I switch my weapon, point down, edge out, this is again offensive. In my opinion, the dumbest way you can hold a knife, because the reality is it has some of the advantages of this with the disadvantage of you don't have range anymore, okay? It's good for stabbing still, but the cutting you start to lack. He comes in, I can come like this. This is dumb, don't do this, okay? I can pass it. There, here, okay? And again, it's not that it's inherently terrible, but what it is it's the least effective of them. If I'm gonna have it inverted, I'm gonna turn it around. Because now when he comes in, I can here, right? Now I have control with the ability to move on, back end, right? Same thing, or back end here, right? Now I'm in a situation where I'm cutting him this way, I'm cutting him this way, right? And I have the ability to maintain my offensive angles, right? You'll notice what I'm doing with his hand when I go to control, strike, here, is I bring him to my 4 quadrants. I'm the strongest here, and here, and here, and here. We can break it down to sport like basketball. Where do you hold the ball to keep it from your opponent? In the middle, low, low. This is where you're gonna be strong. Just keep it that way, okay? Now, again, knife to knife, fun for practice, looks nifty. The reality is when I don't have a weapon, how do I deal with his weapon, okay? He attacks me, I have to come around. I have to get out of the way of it. He, same thing, right? Here, right? Backhand, right? Here, stop it, bridge it out, right? Same thing, backhand, yeah, right? Circle it through, right? Again, these grips, you'll notice, are so similar to where my weapon is, point down, okay? Point down, same with the low line. He gives me a low line attack. Here, if I have my knife inverted, he throws that, I'm here. I have him caught here, I have a stop. And that's where he's gonna end. I have to right? Now I have a disarm with control and offense. The reality is if you only train with your knife, you end up missing the biggest reality of what you're going to have to deal with. And that's when you don't. He comes in, right? Here, right? Do I want to stay on the line of attack? Probably not. He comes in, right? Redirect, right? And now again, I'm in this situation. It's a takedown, it's a strip, it's control. Whatever the case may be, you need what you're doing knife to knife to translate to empty hand to knife. Because if you're not training that, you're missing the biggest part of your knife and edge awareness training. Because again, you have people that are gonna say in the comments, oh, I'm not gonna carry a baton, I'm not gonna carry a long blade. People carry knives. You see it all over the world. It's a super available tool. It's there all the time. Just because you maybe you have one and you can't deploy it, maybe you don't have one at all. But your training needs to be a direct line from what you're doing in the gym to what you might experience in real life, okay? And if you're missing that, you're doing yourself a massive disservice. And this is where your instructors need to be hammering on you. This becomes this. Because what you're doing over here shouldn't be different than what you're doing over here. What I'm doing with a long blade shouldn't be so different than what I'm doing with a short blade. Shouldn't be so different than what I'm doing empty hand. Those are the realities of the situation. You need to be able to boil this much technique into this much technique. Because this much technique that boils into this much application is the most effective use of your training time, as opposed to this much technique to this much prospective situation that you might face.
Oh, Dax, where could people find you if they want to get in touch and train with you?
Oh God, email, really.
What's your email?
DaxLWilliams@gmail.com.
Awesome.
DaxLWilliams@gmail.com.
If you like what he's saying, you like his instruction style, give him an email at daxlwilliams@gmail.com. Thanks for watching. This video today is brought to you by the Gen 2 Phenolic Collie Sticks. Get yours at BuddhaBrothers.com.
In a typical where you have like a non-natural material, you're going to have this rubbing partly because of you don't have a solid grip to get onto.
Right.
If you're training with rattan or anything to that effect, it works because it's not going to rub the same because you're going to have that varnish that removes where you hold it.
Yeah.
But the difference is when you have a good solid grip on the weapon, you don't have the movement inside your grip that when you have these, like, again, these cold steel ones or these other poly type materials that are going to, most of them bend, right? So your points where you're coming in and you're contacting your opponent's weapon, now your weapon's like bananaed up towards you and things aren't where they're supposed to be. You know, so the grips are going to make a huge difference in terms of your longevity in training. If you end up with blisters on the insides of your hands every time you're training with a non-natural material, you're always going to steer away from doing it because, oh, I can do 30 minutes, 40 minutes with that, and then my hand hurts so much I can't keep on going. So this is like perfect. It's a brilliant design.